Hello and welcome to this edition of Ask the Joes and Kale. My name is Joe Lowry Jr. This is Kale Flagey and we're with Lowry Financial Advisors, and we're here to talk to you a little bit about cryptocurrency. Now, Kale and I are not cryptocurrency experts. We are financial advisors, and as a result spend most of our time helping our clients prepare for the future and for their specific goals, and generally deal in the area of securities, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, things like that. Cryptocurrency is none of those things, but it is an area of interest for a lot of the people that we work with. So we thought we should talk a little bit about why someone might want to own it, what are the dangers you should consider, and what the future might be. So where do you think is a good place to start?
Let's start with some of the good things about cryptocurrency.
All right.
What do you got?
Well, number one, cryptocurrency is decentralized.
What does that mean? Everybody says decentralized. What does that mean?
So for a lot of things, let's say banking, if you have an account at a bank, that bank has a computer system, and the records of who owns what and how much is in each account is held by that bank. If that bank's security is compromised, theoretically, a hacker could go in there and change the amounts and really wreak havoc in the system. Cryptocurrency uses something called the blockchain. Each kind of cryptocurrency has its own blockchain. And that's the software, the algorithm, I don't know exactly what you would call it, that it knows who owns what. And rather than being held in one central place, it is distributed. The ledger of ownership is distributed across hundreds or thousands or millions of computers, any of the computers that are part of that blockchain. So if you are concerned about centralized asset security, then that's one reason why cryptocurrency can be attractive. Now, do you want to hear something that makes me nervous about cryptocurrency?
What worries you, Joe?
Well, number one is the name, currency. How would you define a currency, Kale? What do you think makes something a currency?
Like you can easily exchange it for goods.
Yes, exactly.
Or services.
Or services.
Or pay your taxes with it.
Yes, that's true. That's really what distinguishes currency from other kinds of assets. For example, I can't easily take my house and use my house to buy a car. So currency like the US dollar is attractive because I have a pretty good idea that what it's worth when I leave my office to go downstairs and buy a taco is the same. It's going to be worth that much money 5 minutes later when I go to pay. Whereas with cryptocurrency, the value is varying widely, and it's not tied to any specific asset. So we know cryptocurrency doesn't have the same kind of...
I like to think of it more of a store of value.
Right, so that's the term we often hear with cryptocurrency. What do you mean by store of value?
Well, it's kind of like, I guess, digital gold, you would say.
Yeah, and that's definitely the way I think people think about cryptocurrency today. Cryptocurrency is attractive to people because of decentralization, because it can be considered a store of value. Now, something like Bitcoin is attractive because it's scarce. Do you know how much Bitcoin will there eventually be?
Is it 21 million coins?
Yeah, 21 million coins. So there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin, at least as the software that the blockchain for Bitcoin would dictate. So there is scarcity.
And it gets more scarce because people have lost so much of it.
Correct. As you shared a few weeks ago, millions and millions of dollars of Bitcoin have just kind of disappeared because the wallet, the hardware that holds them, has been lost. So I think one of the things that concerns us, or where we would distinguish between something like Bitcoin and security like a stock or a bond, is that generally securities are valued based on the operations of the companies that issue them or some other value. Sometimes when we think about investment risk, we might think about a company like a tobacco company, right? Tobacco companies are under a lot of scrutiny. They face a lot of regulatory pressure. Nobody feels particularly good about them and their business, aside from the people who benefit directly financially.
But there is a strong cash flow there, so in theory, there's only so low that stock could go.
Right, because they have assets, they have income. Something like Bitcoin is not supported by any kind of operations. The value that it has is based on the belief that people have that it is worth something. And it's possible that belief could completely evaporate and the asset could shrink in value like it has in the past.
But you make the same argument for gold, correct?
Correct. Really for any kind of commodity. And that's the key. When we think about cryptocurrency, we would much rather people think of them as crypto commodities because they're not really currency in the way we think about the dollar or the euro or other global currencies today, because the high variability, the lack of widespread usage in normal financial operations. Having said all this, are there any other reasons why people think cryptocurrency is attractive?
Legitimate reasons?
Yeah. Why don't you just say
Oh,
speculation?
Well, yeah, speculation.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Right now, there's a lot of interest in it. People think that it's going to be more widely accepted. You have banks and other entities that are making it easier for people, for their clients to own those assets. And so that's definitely one reason why people think it will continue to grow in value, is just it will become more widely used. The ownership will be more, more broad. So that's just something to consider. Now there are, probably dozens of different kinds of cryptocurrencies right now. It's something that requires a great degree of caution. You should be ready if you decide to own any of these assets, that the value of those assets could go completely to zero. Some of the cryptocurrencies have some vulnerability. The software, the way they have been written, may not be as safe or secure. So as with any asset, anything that you're putting to risk, you should consider the pros and cons. So we are by no means recommending the purchase of cryptocurrency, but we know it's an area of interest for a lot of people, and so we thought we should at least address some of the pros and cons. Among the things that we are excited about when it comes to cryptocurrency is this idea of a distributed ledger. Right now, there are things like property. If you wanted to buy a house, who records and keeps a record of that property transaction? It's the county. And if you live in a country or in an area of the world where you don't have that kind of reliable institution to register who owns what, having that record distributed across kind of a broad, less vulnerable or less potentially corruptible system, I think is attractive to a lot of people. So in the United States, we've got great, in the United States, we have pretty good institutions that help with those kinds of things. In other places in the world, they don't. And so I think that's part of what's fueling a lot of this enthusiasm.
And it is good for a store of value in some of those places also, where there's not a lot of government trust.
Right.
Your currencies can fluctuate wildly. If you ever needed to leave the country, it's easier to do that with your digital wallet.
Yeah,
Things of that nature.
That's a great point. If you live in Argentina or Venezuela or places where they've had a lot of currency inflation, having an alternative could be pretty attractive. And yeah, like you said, you can't put $1 million of gold in a suitcase and expect to avoid scrutiny, but you could do that with a currency. Now, there are other legal issues to consider. In fact, this is probably a good time to share with you that this material is intended for informational, educational purposes only and should not be construed as investment advice, a solicitation, or a recommendation to buy or sell a security, investment product, or cryptocurrency. Please contact your financial professional for more information specific to your situation. So I hope this has been helpful. Like I said before, we're not experts, just a couple of guys who wanted to share some thoughts on cryptocurrency.